Do you know that 99% of parents spoil their children? If you want to teach your children to do great things, you have to do the opposite of everything other parents do. Anyone who has been a parent knows that when your child is a newborn, in addition to their gentle and cute appearance, you will see that their behavior and gestures do not have any trace of good. The beliefs of newborns are very simple, just 8 words. If we are compliant, then prosperity will prevail. If we are rebellious, then destruction will occur. What I say is not easy to absorb, so remember to watch until the end to grasp it. Ancient education greets you and my friends. I have noticed that many parents understand filial piety too simply. They think that obedient children are filial. If they are not obedient, then disobedience is unfilial. Young children are easily influenced by the values of adults when parents and teachers constantly demand that children obey. Children only do one thing, which is to obey, obey, and obey again. Children are like that. At home, they obey their parents. At school, they obey their teachers. Outside, they obey their friends. When they get married, they obey their wife. At work, they obey their boss. So please ask a person who only knows how to listen to others, how can he have the ability to think independently? Human is called a spirit animal because we know how to think, not because we know how to listen. A person tells you to listen means they want you not to think. Listening can only make a good person but cannot become an excellent person. Parents tell their children to listen implicitly to tell them that thinking is dangerous and will cause mistakes. So many children from young to old only know how to listen and never use noise, while those who do not listen are abandoned by society. Why does society abandon them? Because they have their own thoughts through thousands of years. The period I love the most is the spring and autumn warring states period. At that time there were hundreds of large and small countries fighting. It was wonderful. Of course, the reason I love it is not because of the war, but because at that time there were many different ideologies. At that time there was Confucius, Lao Tzu, Han Feizi, Mencius, and more than 100 different schools of thought called the 100 Schools of Thought. Under 20 years old, there is no need to read today. We must learn wisdom from these ancients, but now we constantly teach children to obey, that is, let our thoughts dominate their brains, making them stop thinking. When there is only one thought, then no creativity and progress can be achieved. In European history, there was a dark period that lasted for more than 1,000 years. Almost no progress was because the Catholic Pope had absolute power to rule the people. This caused Europe to fall into a state of single-minded culture. When the Pope ordered everyone to just obey, then Copernicus said the Earth was not the center of the universe. He was burned alive. Luckily, the Renaissance came and people started to use reason to think. Famous figures we are familiar with like Michelangelo, Galileo, Da Vinci, Shakespeare all appeared in this period. A scientist said that if there was no dark period Europe hindering the progress of society, we could have traveled to space a few centuries earlier. We have a student, Mr. is a famous painter over 60 years old who specializes in instructing art teachers at a school. When he instructed an art teacher at this school, he said that when teaching children to draw, you must not teach them how to draw, but tell them to draw randomly. He continued to say that learning standard drawing skills will at most only make you an ordinary painter. Only by drawing randomly can you become a master. At that time, I was stunned. But when these words came from the mouth of a famous painter over 60 years old, there must be a reason for him. He had been drawing all his life, right? Then we realized that wine also draws spontaneously to create his own style. Just like many business owners, although we have to learn from many teachers, in the end, we all turn knowledge into our own ideas to create a successful business. No boss has made a great career just by listening, and someone who only knows how to listen cannot be a boss. If you are a boss, you are just a boss who doesn't have enough money to pay your salary. Therefore, the boss's dear when raising your children, do not teach them to listen to you, but guide them to think independently. Dare to let them make mistakes, and after making mistakes, they must be responsible for the consequences of their thoughts. Only then can they accumulate experience and wisdom. Children must be taught the opposite to become great things. 99 parents spoil their children. If you want to teach your children to do great things, you must do the opposite of everything other parents do. Anyone who has been a parent knows that when your child is a newborn, in addition to their gentle and cute appearance, you will see that their behavior and gestures do not have any trace of good. A newborn's belief is very simple. Just 8 words. If we are favorable, we will prosper. If we are adverse, we will destroy. Children are born to always put themselves at the center. They absolutely do not stand on your side to think. Just whatever they want, they will do it. Hey, if he can't get it, then he cries. If he cries and still can't get it, then he cries louder until he gets it. This unique idea of the child does not need to be conveyed by anyone, but is innate. If the child was not autistic, then the human race might not have existed until today, when seeing the mother holding a cookie ready to put it in the mouth of a completely autistic child will not stand on the mother's side to think, it will not have compassion and even less feelings of shame. It will forcefully snatch the cookie from the mother's hand and put it in its mouth without a moment's hesitation. If the child had to care about the mother's feelings when hungry, then it would have starved to death long ago. Everyone from birth knows how to use tricks of power and deception, so your child has been a politician since birth. You teach your child to be obedient from a young age. Be gentle and kind. Housewife who keeps her place has drowned their inherent instinct to attack. Doing so leads to they grow up weak and incompetent and can only become prey in the eyes of the rich. That is the bullet that turns the wolf into lamb. Many children were taught by their parents to be obedient when they grew up and had difficulty getting married and even having difficulty eating. They were looked down upon by society and taken advantage of at will. I will tell you a true story. My daughter was in the graveyard class at that time. One day she came home crying and told me that the 5 new pencils her mother had bought for her had been snatched by the class president. I told her not to cry anymore. She had to use any means to get those 5 pencils back. If she couldn't get them back, she would be beaten. The next day she came home. I asked her if she had gotten the pencils back. She shook her head in fear. I knew she had failed. I told her if she hadn't gotten the pencils back by the end of the week, she would be beaten. By the end of the week, I asked her if she had gotten the pencils back. She hesitated for a while and then said she was too scared to ask. I told her that tomorrow she had to tell the teacher and get the pencils back for me. My wife stood next to her and said that I was making a big deal out of it. It was just a few pencils, and if they were lost, that was it. Why did she have to go to such lengths to make her scared? Normally, when my child didn't study well, I didn't see her being active. I didn't explain to my wife because she had never studied our human nature system. She would never understand the world of power and intrigue. That night, I called my daughter's homeroom teacher and told her about the story of her pen being taken. The teacher said that she would handle the matter tomorrow. The next day, my daughter came home very happily and took 5 new pencils. The class monitor asked for compensation. I praised my daughter. Then I said that tomorrow she should bring those 5 pencils to Trung and leave 3. I gave 2 to the class monitor and said that we should become sisters. If there is anything delicious in the future, we can share it with each other. My daughter was stunned and asked, "Dad, why did you force her to ask for those 5 pencils back and then tell her to give 2 to the class monitor?" Looking at her innocent face, I replied, "When you grow up, you will understand. Why don't I care much about my daughter's academic performance but take this seriously? First of all, the reason I forced her to ask for her pencils back was because this was the first time the class monitor bullied my daughter. If this time, she's successful, bullying will happen a second time and a third time and a third time, and there will be countless other times. If someone bullies you for the first time and you don't fight back when they get used to bullying, and then you fight back, then they will continue until they knock you down in their mind. They will think this coward dared to fight back. I have to beat him up to know what a dog's betrayal feels like. Why do they think that? Because the first time they bully you, you don't fight back. Your actions have let them know that you can be bullied. I will explain further why after. Taking back 5 pens, I told my daughter to give the class 2 pens. I am different completely with the majority of parents. Other parents usually only teach their children to study well and progress more and more, so that when they grow up they can get a good job. The result is that when their children grow up, they don't know how to do anything but find a job. I always teach my daughter that in the class there are people who are good at math, good at literature, good at English. Their achievements are so good when they grow up, they will definitely do the job of a child when they grow up, which is to arrange work for them to do well. Parents. Others only tell your child to study well. I train my child's leadership ability from a young age. If your child can lead other children to play, become a child king means your child has the ability to lead others. I told my daughter to give 2 pens to the class monitor and make friends with the class monitor to train the ability to sacrifice, become a child king, train leadership ability. Class monitor. Looking back at history, we see that many people who became rulers all have one thing in common, is that when they were young they were child kings. Let's talk about the first emperor of Vietnam after the period of Chinese domination. According to Dai Viet Su Khai Ton Thursday, recorded in the Age of Children Vu, often with the children of the Python Chow in the field, the children themselves understand that knowledge is not as good as the king. Together honor him as the leader. When playing, often make them cross their arms to make a palanquin and hold flowers to rush on both sides to welcome, like the imperial seal. On their free days often drag each other to beat children to each other. Wherever the children are afraid, serve each other every day, even though they come to serve each other to gather firewood to cook rice. Can see the loss of childhood. Din Tien Hong was the child king of a group of people like Din Daing Nguyen Bac Lu Ko and Trin Tu, who later joined him in fighting the 12 Warlords Rebellion to unify the country and found the Dinh dynasty. Dai Co Viet country in Vietnamese history. Honestly, I think that this period of the 12 Warlords Rebellion can also be considered a warring states period of Vietnam, similar to the Spring and Autumn Warring States period of China. Every day the child king thinks of ways to make children obey him and deal with disobedient children, so we should encourage children to become class leaders as much as possible. Remember to create conditions and use every means for them to achieve this position. If they cannot be class leaders, train them in leadership skills. Class leaders from a young age must learn to sacrifice. I remember a famous saying that don't be afraid of leaders with principles, just be afraid of leaders without interest. These two sentences are the core of leadership ability. Why people want you to lead? They are because they believe they can benefit from you. Do you remember when we were kids we liked to run behind who we most said frankly who gave us toys? We played with that person who gave us food. We listened to that person. The real appeal of a leader lies in their ability to spend generously and their methods. As long as you are willing to spend and know how to spend, you will immediately establish a divine image in their hearts. As long as you are the stingy one in the group, no matter what you do, you can't make up for it, because they know they will never benefit from you again and will not want to be led by you. This explains why many good students only become employees, while many bad students lead their brothers to start their own business, because good students in school only learn from books while bad students learn about people. They understand human nature. Bad students are too bored with nothing to do all day, just dreaming about becoming a boss later, to be a strict secretary to me. Tell your daughter to ask for the pen back and then give it away has two purposes. A class monitor will not dare to bully my daughter anymore. Two daughters not only do not create new enemies but also have a good friend. Here are 3 secrets to teach the opposite. Listen carefully. Secret number 1: for children to get used to the law of the jungle from a young age. Parents often teach us from a young age that when we grow up we must find a stable job. Do not speak rashly. Do not touch money. The results are as expected. We grow up in their way because we are really too poor. No money to touch. From a young age we are taught the concept of poverty. Teaches to be weak. We despise rich people, stay away from them, even hate. We believe that poor people are good people. Poor people have kind hearts. We keep the inner world of young children from being polluted until children enter society. Most of them cannot adapt to the jungle of society. They discover that society is completely opposite to the world they understand, because from a young age they despise rich people, so they do not know how to make money because they believe in children. People are inherently good, so they cannot Cope when being deceived by bad people in business, making them unable to be filial to their parents, so that their parents become lonely old people. Miserable not because they are unfilial, but because of helplessness we cannot fulfill our responsibilities and love for our children, making them become children who are left behind, not because we are cruel, but because we are incompetent. If we do not teach children how to fight for power, when they grow up they will only have one outcome: is sheep entering the tiger's fangs. Strong people are trained from a young age when children are young parents. Must be a little strict with them, create for them failure and attack you at home already enough to bully them. When they go out they will be less bullied by others. Bullying you at home, scolded a lot, beaten enough. When they go out they can have the ability to withstand failure more strongly. There are children at home who are spoiled by their parents to the point of no longer being dignified. I say in my heart, just wait for the unlucky days ahead. When they go out into society, not everyone is their biological parents who will love them like that, who will care about their feelings. You can't pamper them all their lives. Don't let them develop a habit of being pampered through the pressure and failure you create at home. Let them learn to assess the situation. Advance, retreat, choice. If you can hit, then hit. If you can't hit, then talk. If you can't run, then run. In short, you have to learn to minimize the damage to yourself to the lowest level, to learn how to face and endure pressure. This is how social intelligence will treat them in the future. You should have treated them like that at home when children were young. If you successfully help them overcome all failures, then when they grow up they will fail to overcome all successes. Music success secret number 2: nurture a sense of competition in the room. The study of the New Men Milk Company has a picture hanging on it depicting a lion and an antelope with the following passage. In the morning on the African grasslands, the antelope wakes up. It knows that a new race has begun. Its opponent is still the fastest lion. If it wants to survive, it must run at full speed. On the other hand, the pressure on the lion is not small. If it cannot catch up with the slowest antelope, there will be nothing to eat when the sun rises. Run at full speed to survive. We must let children understand from an early age that all benefits do not fall from the sky but must be achieved through competition. Our success is based on our own strength and the failure of our opponents. How to foster a sense of competition in children. I may be quite conservative, but if it is just a hobby without innate talent, it is best not to let children study music, fire, calligraphy, such artistic activities. We should let them learn Go, Chinese chess, military chess, and competitive sports, so that they have a sense of competition right away. From a young age, have the concept of defeating opponents. If losing, will also training the ability to withstand failure. Many rich bosses are very fond of gambling activities. They constantly strengthen their sense of competition. Why do I not encourage too many physical sports? Because physical sports will reduce training of thinking. I do not oppose sports training, is to have a healthy body from which can compete better, but in the end should still focus on competition in cognitive thinking. Secret number 3: training the thinking of power and strategy. Let children read more books before the time of Han Wudi, such as Han Fei Zi Gue Gu Zi left the story of Sun Tzu's Art of War. Such books children must learn the thinking of making money from a young age. Any thinking that does not make money is imaginary. The wallet is the only measure to test your right and wrong thinking. Once my daughter performed at school when she came home to put on a little lipstick at night when eating dinner. With sharp eyes, my wife realized that her daughter used her makeup to paint because she used tomato lipstick. Dried tomato. She asked her daughter if she took her mother's grades. No, the girl was afraid of being beaten, so she stubbornly denied it. My wife got angry and beat her up and said she was only 7 years old but dared to lie. When she grew up, would she dare to steal? That night, my wife told me this story and was proud of her way of teaching me. After hearing it, I was shocked. I said, if a child lies, why beat him? My wife said, "Honey, are you kidding? Are you crazy? Why don't you beat me for lying?" I asked her softly last month if she had ever lied. She was surprised for a moment and then said, No. I repeated the question and she still answered no. I said, once when I went out drinking with friends, my mother called me and texted me that she was going shopping. Did you forget? Why couldn't she deny it anymore? She said, yes, but that's different. Actually, my wife often lies, not just that time. Oh, I forgot to say that I often lie too. I told my wife that the child lied. You beat her. When she lied, who beat her? Oh, my wife needs to be more mature if you keep scolding and making her listen like that. A child without any survival skills grows up to make a living. How in the market is not directly useless. I told my daughter, you absolutely must not lie, but the premise is that lying must bring benefits to others. My daughter looked at me blankly. Dad, oh, is that a lie out of goodwill? Not listen to what you say. I am very happy, more famous than my wife all the way. Tang Tang mouth said out of practice does not lie, but told son Wukong to put on a beautiful hat after Tang Tang chanted an iron stick son. Wukong said the teacher lied. Tang Tang replied the teacher. Also for the benefit of the child, tricks. Sinister tricks plus a kind heart is Buddha. Sinister tricks plus a vicious heart, the result is a bad person. Without tricks plus a kind heart is useless. When teaching children, we do not just convey a simple idea of being a gentle and obedient person to become a good person. We need them to become a character of both talent and virtue, gathering the thinking courage of a robber, skills of a thief, the swindler's wisdom, the merchant's sincerity, the politician's system, the cultural foundation of the writer, the monk's faith. From a young age, children must learn all these things. Only by integrating all the above elements can children become characters standing at the pinnacle of power and wealth.